Hey everybody, it's Jason here. A couple quick notes on this episode and the show in general. Number one, our guest is the fantastic Robert Duncan McNeill, who you may know as Tom Paris from the television show Star Trek Voyager, but he also has a lengthy TV directing career, including the recent Resident Alien, starring Alan Tudyk, which is such a good show. So the fun thing about this episode, we recorded this a few weeks ago. You may have just heard my episode with Andrew Ray of Binging with Babish, where I threw a curveball at him and let him speak with one of the writers of one of his favorite episodes of Frasier, Chris Marcel. That was a lot of fun. This week, again, did this a few weeks ago when we recorded it. My friend Kimberly is a huge Star Trek Voyager fan, very specifically of Tom Paris. That's one of her favorite characters. And I told her that we were going to be doing some kind of dumb, stupid setup, and she bought it. And it's a great, fun surprise. And she's a very good sport on the show. And so the last just few minutes of the show are a little Star Trek discussion, which I hope you enjoy. And if you do enjoy Star Trek discussions, this is what's called a segue. You might enjoy hosts with their own Picard, which my friend Dan and I do, where we talk about the TV show Picard and stuff that is relevant to Picard. We were supposed to do a lot of in-between episodes of other shows that are relevant, including Voyager. That's something we're picking up now that there was a season 2 teaser. That show doesn't come out till next year, so we got a lot of time to fill. So I think you might enjoy that. One final thing in this intro, and that is you may have seen on Twitter recently that I just announced that we'll be ending the show in November at episode 400. I think one of those things will be true, and that will be the November thing. It may end up going a little past 400, but roughly 400 episodes. When I announced it, a lot of people came out of the woodworks and said, hey, I'd love to do the show. And I was like, okay, great. So it may go a little over 400, but our final one will be in November. That's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, so there you go. I want to thank you guys for your support. Thank you for listening. I hope you really enjoyed this one. And again, give hosts with their own Picard a listen. It's fun. Thanks so much. Enjoy this episode. I'm Jason Klom, and this is Comedy on Vinyl. The year is 1977, the album Let's Get Small, the artist Steve Martin, and my guest this week is Robert Duncan McNeill. Thank you so much for being here.
Great to be here. I'm so excited. It's funny, when I got this message through my agent about this podcast, the title, I'm a huge vinyl fan. Mm-hmm. I've come back around to rebuilding a collection of vinyl for myself in the last 4 or 5 years. And so I love listening to music on vinyl. I've got an old Marantz, 1970 Marantz amplifier. I've built everything, Advent speakers from back in the day. It's like my childhood recreated and my teen years recreated better than I had them. I think I had a horrible, like, all-in-one 8-track player,
of course,
record, turntable, everything. I think Kobe was the brand that I had.
Okay.
Which was probably from Kmart or something like that. Sure. Back in the day. That's what I had then. Mm-hmm. But now I have a Marantz, 1970 Marantz, rebuilt from the ground up, beautiful amplifier, Advent speakers, much better than I ever had as a kid. And I love it.
Do you ever, though, still have some nice headphones that you listen to, or are you always speakers only?
I'm always speakers. It's interesting. I probably should get, because I did have a pair of headphones that, again, probably were from Kmart. I lived near a Kmart. Okay. And growing up, I would skateboard down the road and wander the aisles of the electronics. And what else did I love there? The sporting goods aisles and things like that. But the electronics, for records, I would get at Kmart. My stereo all came from there.
Did you get this record at Kmart? That's question number one.
Well, interesting. So I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. Mm-hmm. I wonder where I got this out. I think I got this album for Christmas.
Okay.
I think that, in fact, I'm almost certain I must have gotten it for Christmas, and I'm sure my parents didn't listen to it because they would have probably forbid it.
Sure.
But all my friends were doing the jokes, and, we would do the jokes at school. Everybody knew the jokes, and so I think my parents, had said, like, what do you want? And I probably said a couple of albums, and this was one of them. So I don't know where they got this album.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, I was going to ask because the parents do tend to fall into one of two categories, which is, hey, they listened to these comedy records with me, or I had to sneak it, or, you know, be very, very, you know, again, got to have the headphones, my Kmart headphones in your case. How much of it did you process? Because the thing is, I think he falls into the same category as a lot of comedy does when you're, you know, roughly 12, 13, 14, where it's like, I get the tone of this and I know why it's funny and I know the goofiness. It's just as you get older, you kind of maybe absorb the irony a little more. It makes more sense to you on different levels. Were you just like, this is goofy and I love it?
I think that, you know, the thing about Steve Martin, here's what's shocking, because I haven't listened to this album since I was probably a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went back and listened to it the other day, and it was amazing to me that some of the comedy was much more edgy than I remember Steve Martin being.
Sure.
And the kind of jokes and the kind of comedy that now would be completely inappropriate. Not just, it wouldn't just be edgy now, it would be politically incorrect.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, Steve Martin, because he's such a nice guy. I mean, I think the history that I've learned or heard over the years is, wasn't he playing banjo at Disneyland or something?
Yeah, he worked at Knott's Berry Farm, but also at, you know, the banjo might have been Knott's Berry Farm because he worked at the magic shop in Disneyland, if I remember
That's
correctly.
what it was, the magic shop. He would tell jokes. He'd do magic comedy and try to sell the cards or the magic tricks and doing the comedy. And so there's a Disneyland quality about Steve Martin that's, you know, he's America's dad kind of guy. He's very wholesome and, you know, non-threatening and seems like just the regular guy next door. So I think that was true back then. Even back then, that was very true. But yet, like you say, the comedy was not so, you know, America's dad. It was very, very much not that, you know.
Especially when, like, if I look through the track listing and I'm doing bits in my head because to be fair, we've covered this album a lot on the podcast, and I was actually happy you picked it up because it's been a while since I've had a chance to listen to it, even though it had been covered a lot years before. It's now been enough time that I can listen to it again. And yeah, I mean, my favorite bit, I think, on this record is like just, it's violent. It's violent, but it's so funny and dark, and it's just the one way to leave your lover bit, which is which just talks about the whole bit. Oh my God, you know, the keys. She wouldn't let me, so I shot her.
I shot her
with a shotgun, cut her right in half, and it just goes down this hill. It's just and that's one of those things where as a kid you must have felt like, oh, I'm not supposed to be listening to this.
Oh God, yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Was it a religious household as well? I mean, I don't really dig into
that. I grew up in like an evangelical or Southern Baptist household, so you know, didn't talk about much of anything. You know, everything was very repressed and Southern, and yeah. So like even, you know, the title track, "Let's Get Small," you know, no man, I'm tall, you know, all that stuff. Clearly about getting stoned or drugs or whatever, but he's got a way, like Steve Martin had a way that even in my Southern Baptist household, somehow he was just not threatening, and it was okay. You know, it was not like Richard Pryor or Carlin or some of these other comics who were very, you know, very triggering for a lot of people.
Sure, yeah.
Somehow Steve Martin could get away with it. So
I know because he was the guy who those are perfect examples because Carlin and Richard Pryor both started as Suits, tame, I'm going to do Ed Sullivan, and slowly but surely they become their own person. And Steve Martin always looked that way, but just slowly but surely became more and more subversive and still doing the same stuff, but it was way darker than anything anybody else was doing.
I have an anecdote about Steve. I mean, it's funny because when my agents contacted me about your podcast, you know, Let's Get Small, that album was the one that came to mind. But then as I started thinking about it, his first 3 albums were almost of a piece for me, I've got to say. Let's Get Small. What was it? Wild and Crazy Guy. Comedy's Not Funny. Those first 3 albums, I had all of them.
Yeah.
Listened to all of them. Did the bits at school. Did the all of it. Knew it. By heart. And here's an interesting anecdote. So I don't know what year it was. I want to say it was probably 1979, 78, 79. I don't know when King Tut came out.
Oh yeah, it would have been 78, I think.
78. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was involved with a children's theater. That's how I got into showbiz. I was doing community theater in Atlanta, Georgia, and they took us on a trip every summer to New York City.
Oh my gosh.
To go see some theater, and they would charter a bus, and they'd fill it up with 30 or 40 kids and some chaperones, and we'd go up to New York on a bus from Atlanta and stay in a hotel. We stayed at the Waldorf Astoria. Was the trip. And we'd all jam in there like summer camp for about 4 or 5 days, and then we'd take a bus back. We'd go up maybe on a Wednesday and come back Sunday or something.
Okay.
See a bunch of shows and visit New York. My very first trip to New York, that group, they would sort of subdivide. They'd say, well, who wants to go to the Statue of Liberty, and who wants to go to Central Park? And so smaller groups would go on different tours, touristy things. And I had chosen to go on the Rockefeller Center tour.
Mm-hmm.
So they take you to, up to the viewing platform. They take you to NBC Studios tour, where you get to tour that stuff. And we had done that, I want to say on a Thursday or a Friday, we had gone on the NBC Rockefeller Center tour. And they were taking our group through the studios there, where they did Saturday Night Live and what else happened there? Anyway, Saturday Night Live was the big thing.
Sure.
And as we come through in a group, they say, "Oh, well, this is a treat. They're doing a dress rehearsal right now for Saturday Night Live for tomorrow night's show, and Steve Martin is the guest host, and we're going to walk you through the booth, the control room, and you can see a moment of this rehearsal." So I got to see Steve Martin. We happened to walk through as he's rehearsing King Tut in the studio. It was a rehearsal, and I guess they filmed the rehearsal just in case things go bad. They can roll to it or something. So it was a full out, and we got to stay there. We got in. He was about to do the song. He did the whole song, and then they basically shuttled us out. But we got to see the whole performance.
Wow.
On monitors there from the control room. So that's another Steve Martin story that comes to mind. That that stuck with me for years. I felt like I had seen behind the curtain, and so exciting.
That's so good. I love, the thing is, as a kid, I've talked a bit about, like, I love them. I still get chills if I'm on a movie set or a TV set. It's one of the only reasons I still do extra work every once in a while, just for fun. I like the chills. But I never got something that young. That must have been just so, like, leave just such a huge friggin' mark on you. I love that. I love that you got that early. Yeah.
And I think, I guess, I've never thought of it this way, but, growing up in Atlanta, so far from Hollywood or New York or any kind of professional show business back in the 70s, certainly, that just didn't seem within reach. Any of that kind of, like, having a career in any kind of entertainment just seemed like something exotic and foreign and only magical people could do. And I actually, now that I think of it, that stuck with me for a long time, because it was a moment where I was sitting there in that control room and I realized, oh, he's a human being. He's right there. He's rehearsing this like we rehearse our little community theater plays. So much of it all of a sudden was brought into reach for me in that moment.
Yeah. To
see him rehearsing this song that had already been on the radio, was like a top 10 hit. King Tut was a huge hit, and it brought it within reach. And I haven't really thought of it that way, but I think that's true, is that was the first time where I sort of saw behind the curtain and went, oh, wow, real human beings do this. And it's not so far off. And yeah, it was pretty cool.
Was there a point that you can, obviously it's probably a no, but was there a point in your life where, you're doing a lot of theater as a kid, where suddenly you realize that that's also can be branched out into TV and movies, which is obviously where you ended up, where your career ends up? Like, when does that become obvious that that is also something you could pursue? Because you went to Juilliard and stuff, but I'm curious when it first like hit you that, oh shit, no, I could actually be on TV. I could be in movies.
I didn't think about television or movies, honestly, even after that moment, even in my younger days, because I had done this community theater, mostly musical theater as a kid. I knew that I wanted to do more of that. And so to me, the thing that was sort of maybe within reach was, oh, if I go to New York, maybe I can get in, a touring production in the chorus of a musical, or I can slowly, I really believed back then that you sort of broke in at the ground floor and then you worked your way up. That you started in, as an understudy or in the chorus, and then maybe a few years later you get a couple of lines in an off-Broadway play, and then maybe to me that sort of like apprenticeship and working your way up made a lot of sense. And so that's kind of how I looked at it, I think, back then. I didn't think about TV or film. I thought about the theater, honestly. And it wasn't until I got to New York and started to get some of those. I got in the chorus of, an off-Broadway musical called Preppies, because the Preppy Handbook was a big thing back then. The Preppy Handbook was like the #1 book on the bestseller. Everybody had the Preppy Handbook, and they wrote this off-Broadway musical, and I got my equity card and was in the chorus of that. And then actually, I was an understudy in that, is really what I was. I was what's called the swing, so I was covering everybody, including the chorus and everybody else. But I got my union membership there and started working. And then, what was I going to say? Oh, TV and film just seemed that sort of happened by accident. And it was funny because that lesson for me was, I got an episode of this, the first revival of The Twilight Zone.
Oh yeah.
And I got that job through a commercial agent that I had just recently gotten, and I think I'd maybe done one commercial for a tuxedo company. I played a kid in high school putting on a tuxedo or something. That's it. That's all I'd done. And I get this episode, a very big role in this episode. They fly me out to Hollywood, my first time there, and I'm doing a lead role in an episode of The Twilight Zone. And I realize, oh, you don't work your way up. You just get lucky or you don't. That was a real breakthrough for me of like, oh, it doesn't work the way I thought. I'm not going to spend 10 years in the chorus and then maybe get a line and then maybe, it'll just happen much more randomly. So, that was my first TV show was The Twilight Zone, an episode called A Message from Charity. And it's funny, a couple years later, I ended up on a soap opera in New York City called All My Children. I was on that for three years. And while I was on the soap, my agent got me an audition for this movie starring Steve Martin called Father of the Bride. And I auditioned for it and got a call back. And then I got another call back where they asked, we were asked to come read with Steve Martin. So I just remembered this as we're talking about, I hadn't thought of this before this interview started, but I went down to Manhattan Theater Club because that was the casting director, was the lady that, I can't remember her name now. She cast the Manhattan Theater Club theater, but she was casting the movie, and went to her offices there, and there was Steve Martin. And I got to go in this little room and do these scenes that I had auditioned for a couple of times already.
Sure.
He was the nicest man. He was so down to earth and friendly and warm and almost shy. Oddly enough, he was almost kind of, not nervous isn't the right word. I'm sure he wasn't nervous at all, but I think he felt my anxiety. I think he felt for the people that were coming into audition. And so you felt him sort of wanting to bring himself to that level of like, it's okay, like, relax, and this will be fun. And, and we read a couple of the scenes together. I got to read with him, and it was wonderful. I didn't end up obviously doing the movie. A friend of mine, George Newbern, ended up doing that role,
Mm-hmm.
and but that was the second time that I came close to Steve Martin was auditioning for Father of the Bride. So yeah.
I love that. Yeah, because my next question was going to be, have you ever worked with Steve Martin or in any way? But I love that. I love that. That's so good. It's
An audition, that was it. Yeah.
it's not bad though. That is not bad. It is still acting with Steve Martin. Damn it, as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned, it's a thing, man.
Isn't that amazing? It's a thing. It's
And now, what is your experience now as predominantly a director in casting? I wasn't planning on going down this, but you've now seen
Yeah.
that look on a million people's faces, I'm sure, because you produce as well.
Yes.
So I'm curious, like, what's your approach, or do you have to stand back and let them work it out themselves?
I think when people, now that I'm a director and a producer, and when I sense, anxiety or nervousness with actors coming in, I'll often just try to talk about anything but the work. How you doing today? Tell me about yourself. Like where do you live? Like just easy stuff that they can sort of get in their own body and their own life and sort of, oh, this is who I am. I live here and I like this or whatever, ask them just simple, easy, easy questions that sort of get them back into themselves.
Yeah. Have you had the reverse of the Steve Martin situation where you've auditioned or then ended up working with people who know you as Tom Paris?
Yes.
How is
Absolutely.
that? That's got to be a very strange situation. Or you're used to it. Maybe you're used to it. You've gone to cons.
I'm kind of used to it now. The Star Trek thing for me, being on Star Trek as an actor for 7 years. I was guest starred on The Next Generation. I directed tons of Star Trek. I've been to all these conventions. But it's funny. It's funny. I mean, I'm trying to think of this in relation to Steve Martin and this comedy album. It's funny because Steve Martin has been through multiple phases in his career and his life, and I'm sure that every now and then he meets someone who goes back to this album and says, oh my God, you don't realize how important this album was in my life. And I'm sure that means a lot to him, even though he's been through, Steve Martin has done so many movies now and so much, and he's written Broadway musicals and he's written books and plays and he's done all kinds of really fascinating work. So he's lived many lifetimes since doing this album in 1977.
Yeah, it's true.
But
I honestly think that that's one of the reasons he hasn't done this show. Not to say that my show is big enough to have Steve Martin, although it is, whatever. He could do the show anytime he wanted. But I do think he would be afraid that I'd want to ask him about this record because he's probably been, again, you probably brought up a million times to him.
It's probably been brought up a million times, but I bet you that when it does come up, because it was early in his career and it was some of the earliest things that sort of defined him, that it's got to have a special place for him. So I guess having said all of that, for me, when people bring up Star Trek, and even though it's been brought up a million times, I'm always appreciative when people say, that show you did in the 90s was very special to me because I went, what I hear a lot is things like, I was going through a hard time in my life and that character that you played or the show that you were on gave me comfort and gave me hope and got me through something that was really tough. And I bet that Steve Martin has heard many, many times, your album was a harbor in the storm for me when I was a teenager, or your album made me laugh when I was having the worst high school years of my life, or your silliness gave me some tools to go out and deal with the world in a way that was, I would imagine that he hears that and really appreciates that.
I think you're probably right. But he is, as you say, shy or whatever the word is for whatever he is. But that's absolutely how he comes across, where he's just like, okay, I have to be humble. Not I have to be. I think he seems like a very humble guy who likes to play the most braggadocious asshole as his comedy
Yeah.
character, you know. I has this album ever, because it's easy for me to ask somebody who is known as a comedian or like a strictly comedic actor, hey, has this album had an influence on you? But I am always curious for somebody who went to Juilliard and somebody who has had the career you've had. Is there an influence? Could you say that this album has had an influence on your work, or is it just part of your being?
I mean, it's funny for me as an actor, I was never known as a comedic actor. I mean, I think on Star Trek, my character had a lightness about him ultimately, not initially on that show, but as my personality started to come out in the character more over the years, they started to write a sort of lightness, a sort of sarcasm, a sort of silliness. You know, my character on Star Trek had an obsession with this Captain Proton holodeck that was this retro black and white, you know, kind of Flash Gordon-y thing. And he really got into it and was kind of silly and absurd. And I guess I would say that for me, Steve Martin being the kind of comic that I really related to. And like I said, I did the bits, you know, every day at school with my best friends. We knew all the words and we'd do the voices and the silliness. And I think it allowed me to find a kind of silly, absurd sense of comedy that I brought to some of my work as an actor, but I definitely bring to it defines very much my tastes as a director and as a producer. I produced a show and directed 25 or so of them called Chuck. It was a kind of a nerd comedy on NBC with Zach Levi as a computer repair guy in a kind of Best Buy store who was secretly a spy and trying to save the world, and it had a lot of silliness in it, and the goofy characters that worked in the store with him and his best buddy, and there was so much silliness, and to me that was one of my favorite jobs because it allowed me to express my own taste in comedy and my own sensibilities in terms of what's funny. And we did that on Chuck a lot. I would say it was very much in the vein of Steve Martin's school of comedy.
Yeah.
And I think that, listening to his albums, that he was the comic that I listened to, you know, Let's Get Small and Wild and Crazy Guy and Comedy's Not Funny. Those albums, or Comedy is Serious, or Comedy, what was the other album?
Oh, Comedy is Not Pretty. That's what it is. Sorry.
Comedy's Not Pretty. Yeah, I was like, that's not the right. Yeah, Comedy is Not Pretty.
Yeah.
Those albums to me sort of were the tastemakers of my sensibilities in terms of comedy. So absurd, goofy, you know, naive, earnest in a lot of ways. Those sensibilities definitely created my own sort of comedy sensibilities that I bring to when I produce or direct. I do a show right now with Alan Tudyk, a very talented comic actor, called Resident Alien. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of silliness. I mean, as I look at the images behind you of Steve Martin with all of his, you know, really larger than life expressions and physical comedy that I can see right behind you, it reminds me of Alan Tudyk on this show, Resident Alien, where he plays an alien in human form trying to figure out how to be human. And, you know, even Alan Tudyk's, you know, what he came up with and, you know, what we do on the show in terms of this alien making jokes and how he laughs at his own jokes looks like Steve Martin behind you. You know, mm-hmm. it looks as large and silly, this kind of earnestness, this kind of innocence, this kind of crazy, you know, wild and crazy comedy. It definitely still, I carry Steve Martin's tastes into that show. So.
Did you pick up those next two albums on your own then once you finally had this record? or were they presents
Yeah, I
again?
think I did. I think I picked them up on my own, and I probably got them as soon as they came out. Um, albums used to come out on Friday typically.
Okay.
Um, I think, as I recall, or maybe I would just. But I remember going to the record stores. So in Atlanta, when I was growing up, there was a record store called Peaches
I was gonna
Records.
say. I was wondering which fruit record store it was. Okay, good.
It was Peaches was one, and Oz was another one that was in the theme was the Wizard of Oz, and so you'd kind of walk into Oz Records, and it would have a yellow brick road
Oh my god.
coming in the door, and it had all a very Wizard of Oz, Emerald City theme. So Oz Records, Peaches, those were the two record stores that I would go to most of the time,
Hmm.
and I'm sure I got these albums at one of those two places.
Do you have a particular favorite track on this record?
I'm gonna look at it now.
Yeah, I have trouble picking. I mean, I would only go to One Way to Leave Your Lover, if only because I think I have most of it memorized still. I think that's maybe
Yeah,
why.
that's the way to leave your lover's hilarious. I love the plumber convention bit. The when he's like, okay, for this one's for the plumbers, and I can't obviously can't remember the whole bit
Right.
now. But the plumber bit when he's like, so he starts telling the joke, and it's a horrible joke, and then he gets to the Allen wrench with a something 7 millimeter socket, or I don't remember. It was just hilarious, and that one always makes me laugh. Let's Get Small
Hmm.
is very funny.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know.
And nobody has to have a favorite. It's also weird with stand up too, because it's in your head. It's kind of also just for me anyway, a full experience. Cause you're like picturing yourself in the audience and it's just him talking and talking. It doesn't matter what the friggin' track is or what the point of it
Yeah,
is. It's this beautiful It's so interesting to me though, that again, he only makes really this one and the next one, I guess. So those three are really his only strictly comedy albums. Cause eventually he does the Steve Martin Brothers, which is its own thing, and then
right.
obviously just completely jumps ship and is like, no, I'm doing movies now. Because why wouldn't you? You're the biggest name in the world, and if you don't
Yeah.
want to do it anymore, you don't do it anymore. So with those records, I mean, were these the only comedy records you were picking up, or did you get other stuff? I would love to know what your comedy tastes were outside of this, if you bought any other ones.
I don't think I did. I think Steve Martin was it. I mean,
That's awesome.
the
Okay.
thing I do remember is when I was growing up, and I'm sure you've talked a lot about this, the Dr. Demento show.
Sure.
Dr. Demento came on in Atlanta Sunday nights. Um, I think it usually started around 7 to 10, or I don't know how long the show was. But I would listen to Dr. Demento every Sunday night. That was a great way to wind down a weekend. And so I heard a lot of other comedy on Dr. Demento. I remember being introduced to things like the Firesign Theater, some of those comedy bits, or all the novelty songs that he would play, that kind of stuff. But I don't think I really had any other comedy albums except for Steve Martin.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. I mean, I do remember a few years later getting Eddie Murphy's first album, and that was a huge hit.
Of course. Yeah.
Uh,
Did you
um,
did you follow Steve Martin right to movies as soon as The Jerk comes out, et cetera, et cetera?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah,
That's when you got this different grasp of seeing him perform. I mean, you get 90 minutes of this weird type of pathos that doesn't make sense and maybe shouldn't be drawing you in, but wow, that is it. And it's
hmm
not something that I would sit a kid down and be like, "Here, you want to be an actor? Watch this." That doesn't immediately track. Because
no,
it's
not at
not
all.
easy to know what he's doing. He's not acting in the
No,
traditional sense. It's not.
no, not at all.
You couldn't break down
But it
that
was
performance.
so no, but it was also so. I think because I had been in the theater as a young actor and gone to theater school, and there was something about what Steve Martin was doing that felt connected to the theater. It felt theatrical, and it felt, it was not naturalism in any way.
Yeah.
And so I really loved that you saw this real physical comedian, this larger than life kind of performances that was really fun to watch and very different and very unique and felt like theater in a way, which I loved. So
Is there any element of your training as an actor where you would get to explore stuff like that in your own work? Or, because I don't know what acting school is like. I can't even grasp. Is there an opportunity for you to just be a complete jackass?
yeah, yes. When I went to Juilliard, we did all kinds of things like movement classes where you would work on how you'd imitate different animals. You'd find an animal and become that animal, whatever it was, if it was a turtle or if it was a jaguar, or if it was a bird or whatever. So yeah, playing around with physical comedy. We had classes at Juilliard. One of my favorite classes was taught by it was a mask class where you would use very traditional sorts of masks. You started with neutral masks and then went into character masks and commedia dell'arte masks and things like that, French commedia dell'arte or Italian mask comedy, and you'd work with that. I love the mask class because it took away the words. You didn't use words when you initially with masks. You'd use the character mask, and that would sort of inform whatever the movement of the character. And so, yeah, I got to do some of that sort of thing, like what I see behind you again, what Steve Martin's doing in terms of his physical comedy. And I really loved it. I was never a character actor in the way that Steve Martin was so naturally that sort of thing. Alan Tudyk, again, going back to Resident Alien, the show that I produce right now. Alan Tudyk went to Juilliard many years after me, and he and I've talked a lot about the mask class and the physical comedy work and all of that stuff. Alan is definitely someone who took those classes and took them to the next level and brings that sort of character work into things like Resident Alien and the physical comedy that he does. So, and the absurd comedy that he does.
Right. He's also a guy, obviously a talented voice actor, but a guy who I don't know what his natural voice is, so whatever. But the voice that he uses for the alien and that I've heard him use is the robot and iRobot, which can be variously, it's always a little intimidating and scary. There's something frightening underneath that. But
yes.
Boy, oh boy, to use this one level of your voice to express multiple things, obviously, again, working with your own face, but holy boy, oh boy, I really love that show. I've only seen the first two. I'm very much looking forward to the next.
Oh, cool.
The next one.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, we started that show before the pandemic and got shut down just as we were getting near the end, and finished it up just a few months back in August, September, October. Finished filming that, and Alan just did a phenomenal job. He's so good in the show. The show's doing really well. People are really digging it, and Sci-Fi Channel, where it airs, seems to be very happy so far. So hopefully we'll make more of those. And Alan's phenomenal. And yeah, I finished that in October and went right into another comedy show called Turner and Hooch with Josh Peck playing basically the son of Tom Hanks from the original Turner and Hooch movie.
Okay.
Picking up our story with his adult son. And in our series, his father, the Tom Hanks character, has just died of a heart attack, and there's a bit of a mystery around that. But his son, Josh Peck, has to take the grandchild of the original Hooch and deal with the dog. And so there's a lot of great comedy in that. Josh Peck is very funny. He's a real modern day sort of Tom Hanks comedian. Josh, he's wonderful. So yeah, still working on comedy every day. So
are you the kind of actor who can, just going back to the mask thing, if someone were to give you a rendering of this is what I kind of think the character looks like and feels like, what does that help you? Because I think some actors get intimidated about, I want to have my own interpretation. But it is like a mask,
Yeah, I loved. So when I was on Star Trek as an actor, before I started directing and stuff, which is what I do now. But when I was on Star Trek, I played a human character. And often I was very jealous of the prosthetic actors that got these amazing alien creatures all over their face that sort of freed them up to create these crazy, alien characters. But I had one episode where my human character broke the warp barrier and transformed into this sort of lizard creature. It sped up evolution by millions of years so that he became this lizard, and his mind was believing my character's experience was that he was evolving into the superhuman, what humans will be in millions of years because of this warp barrier that he broke through. And so I got to work with prosthetics, and it was one of my favorite episodes, even though a lot of fans hate the episode because it kind of ended in a crazy way.
Okay.
But it just went so nuts in terms of its concepts, and some parts of the plot went off the rails a little bit. It's just crazy. But having said all of that, for me as an actor, to get the prosthetics to work with, and this creature that was created that I sort of literally transformed, that started peeling skin away, and this lizard is coming out, and my tongue fell out, and all of this really cool stuff that I got to do, and the emotional experience that he was having in the midst of all this. I got to chew the scenery and just go crazy in a way that was very freeing. So I see how, again, looking behind you at Steve Martin sort of becoming those prosthetic, rubber faces and, Rubberheads. That's another. Is that on that album? The Rubberheads bit?
Oh, wait, is it?
I know what you're saying. I'm a Rubberhead. Is that on the album? I can't remember.
I now can't remember. I've already forgotten myself.
Anyway, Rubberheads. That was a funny bit.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, well, looking at Steve Martin sort of with his rubbery face there and transforming into almost a human prosthetic sometimes with his goofiness. Yeah, it's very freeing, I think.
I would love for you to tell people at home why listen to this record. Let's say they only know Steve Martin from movies or some appearances on TV, or maybe they're very young and don't know anything about him. Why give this one a listen?
Why give this one a listen? Wow. Why give this one a listen? I mean, there's so many reasons to give it a listen. First of all, his banjo playing, which if you've only seen him in his movies and things like that, you have no idea that he is an incredibly talented musician. His banjo playing on this album is as good as any banjo playing I've ever heard anywhere. I'm sure people may argue that, but he is so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, to see the other sides of him that are so talented, I think that's worth a listen. I think his sort of the way that he works the audience, you can hear it on this album. The way that he responds and has a relationship with the audience in a way that's really unique. Mm-hmm. I think, it's it doesn't feel like a standard comedian who's kind of, riffing on the hecklers or whatever. It's much more than that. Is the bit about what's the oath? He asked everybody to take an oath.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember. Hey, Crime Stoppers or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I promise. I can't remember the bit. And something about, there's another one where he goes, he interacts with the audience. I think it's this album. It could be one of the three that we've talked about. But he says, I promise to be unique. I promise to be unique. And he has the audience repeating it. I promise to be different. I promise to be different. I promise to not repeat anything other people say. It's just like, it's so silly and stupid. It's almost like dumb, bad dad jokes, but he's able to, yeah, that's why I would say listen to this album, because, dad jokes get a bad rap, and he's got a way of doing these kind of dad jokes that is brilliant, that he takes it to like another level. Because if anybody, if I tried to repeat it right now, it's not funny, but there's something about his skill and his talent and his enthusiasm and commitment that takes these sometimes stupid jokes, and makes them really funny and catches people. And I don't know, it's just it's a funny, feel good, yeah, it's just a lot of fun, and it's a full meal. It's not just comedy, it's music, it's music. It sort of captures the spirit of the 70s, the late 70s, of sort of what was left over from the hippies in the 60s and the Cultural Revolution, what was happening in the disco party scene that was going on, the nightclubs and disco scene, captures the politics of that era, and that sort of transitional time from the hippie, from the hippie days. And then he sort of captures that moment in time of that mid-late 70s, what was going on. It's definitely worth a listen. It's fun.
We've talked enough about process on this that I feel like I should suggest to you, and I can send a link to you where to find it, because it is online now. There was a record released during the next record called the Steve Martin Radio Hour, and it's just basically a podcast. It's a 45-minute interview with him where he actually quite seriously breaks down his bits on Wild and Crazy Guy and why he made those choices. None of it's a gag. He's actually doing a straight interview. It's one of the only times I think he ever done it. It's worth listening to, and I've recommended it to a lot of guests and to the audience a million times, but it's worth listening to. Thank you very much for doing the show, first of all.
Absolutely.
Would you tell people where they can find you online and what's coming up in terms of work that they should look out for?
Yeah, let's see. What I'm doing these days, produced and directed on Resident Alien with Alan Tudyk. That's on the air right now. I am currently filming and producing a show called Turn Hooch with Josh Peck for Disney Plus. That'll come out in July, I think. That's the hope, on Disney Plus. That's my work, my directing and producing work. My side project that's kind of a passion project and a lot of fun is a podcast that I do called The Delta Flyers. You can find the free podcast anywhere you get your podcast, Spotify, iTunes, wherever. That's where we rewatch and recap every episode. We started from the pilot episode of Voyager, Star Trek Voyager. We're now into early season 3. So
Holy cow.
We're doing that. And we also interview people that worked on this show. We remember, I have forgotten a lot of the episodes of Voyager that we did. And so this has been a great way for me to go back and remember things that I've completely forgotten. Some of these I didn't even watch when we made the show because we were busy making the show. So I'd miss a lot of episodes. So this has been a way for me to go back and see every one of the episodes we made. We've had crew members and directors and actors and visual effects supervisors and our stunt coordinator. We've had all kinds of behind the scenes people from Star Trek come on. The free podcast is the recap only. The Patreon site, which is the Delta Flyers on Patreon, that's where there's a lot of different levels. People can get different bonus material and different access to some of the behind the scenes stuff that we've researched and interviewed. It's a lot of fun. So the Delta Flyers podcast has been my weekends are spent working on that, and I love it. It's been a lot of fun.
I will subscribe immediately because I have a number of friends who've been saying, Jason, you need to revisit Voyager, especially if it's been a while. So that's something I'm doing, because I'll just mention this now. My friend and I, Dan and I, do a show called Hosts with Their Own Picard. It's a very stupid name, but when the show Picard comes out, we've tracked every episode. We'll do the next one, and everybody's like, well, if you want some more, you need to revisit Voyager. And I'm like, you're right. It's been a while. So I'm now going to have to listen to your show, because that will definitely.
It's a fun It's been a lot of fun. We've kind of come up with this format. The way we work is we don't rewatch it before we start recording the podcast. We sit down together. Garrett, who played Harry Kim, he and I sit down And for our Patreon members, they get some of this extra material, which is where we kind of go, okay, what do we remember? And then we sort of go, well, wait, is this the one where the outfits look like Burger King uniforms? And yeah, wait, no, that's the one where you kiss the girl, right? No, that's the alien dinosaur ate you. So we have all this crazy, like we really legitimately try to remember whatever we can. So that's always a fun process. And then we pause the show and we go watch it separately, and we make notes and we film ourselves sort of reacting to some of it. And then we come back and we recap and we go, oh my God, I remembered this now. Now that I watched it, and we go through the whole plot and the things, that may have happened behind the scenes that no one would know, but we remember as we rewatch it. And then we do, we play some games with our patrons on our Patreon side of things, where we pick winners and losers for each episode. We talk about things we might want to do over and do differently. We interview guests there. And a lot of our Patreon community has kind of gotten together as a group. And so they have a watch party Friday nights before our episodes come out. So they do a rewatch and they have their own conversation, and it's been a lot of fun. Yeah.
That's a nice, healthy way to revisit your past. Like that's a very fun way to do it. I love that. Now, before I let you go, and I can cut this out, and you feel free to say no. My friend Kimberly is a massive fan.
Yes. Okay.
I would like to zoom her in. She thinks she's doing something else entirely, but you can say no.
No, that's fine. It'd be funny.
Okay. Hey, Kimberly.
Hello.
I want you to meet my other guest on my podcast, Robert Duncan McNeill.
Holy fuck! I'm sorry.
Whoa, Kimberly.
I'm sorry.
Kimberly, you look like a cat.
No, that is my
God.
cat. There we go. Holy shit.
Kimberly, what's going on?
Not much.
We were going to do a mic check for this, and I thought we were just doing a mic check, and
so did I.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, we've just been having fun talking about Steve Martin.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, fantastic.
Basically, how I taught him everything he knows.
Okay, that sounds right. That tracks.
That's pretty much our takeaway from this conversation.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Kimberly, do you want to apologize for not delivering his pizza on time?
Oh God! Oh, did you tell him?
No, I did not tell him that.
Oh my God! Oh my God! I had a dream. Okay.
You were delivering pizza?
Yes, and I was delivering it to you, and I was late, and you were mad at me.
Oh, Kimberly.
But
well.
Then, yeah, all I wanted to do was tell you how Voyager is my favorite Star Trek, and I didn't get a chance to because you were mad.
Oh, that's really mean of me. But you got to understand, it's pizza. Like,
it's fair. That's fair.
Pizza is very important, and I think it's worthy of a hissy fit.
Okay, that's fair.
For pizza, right?
Yeah. That's totally
no one can argue that. So, well, now you actually get to, not just in the dream, you get to tell me about your Voyager experience. So
okay. So here, let me make sure. Can you guys? Am I on the right microphone? No, I'm not.
Oh, I don't know. Oh,
is this better?
Oh yeah, sounds good.
There we go.
So
okay,
better.
I was on my webcam. Okay, so I grew up watching it. I watched it every night with my stepbrother. I was teenager at the time, and I grew up. I was born in '84, so I watched a lot of TNG as a little kid, but it wasn't until Voyager that I really actually watched new episodes every week. And
right, sure,
yeah, and that was that. I grew up, TNG era, and my dad was always had Spock years, and he was a huge Trekkie. But
did he go to conventions? Did he take you to conventions?
Yes, I went to one.
Nice.
We went to one, and we met James Doohan, Nichelle Nichols, George Takei, and Walter Koenig at one.
Wow.
And then we went to another, and it was Michael Dorn, Marina Sirde, Tim Russ, and Aaron Eisenberg.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
you're very lucky, because some of those people aren't around anymore.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
Very lucky.
It was. I have.
Jason, nice.
Had to.
Yeah, it was a nice experience meeting all those folks. And then Boise Comic Con a couple years ago, some other folks showed up. I didn't actually meet any of them, but I got to see, like, John Delancey was there, and totally freaking out here. Denise Crosby was there, and so didn't get to talk to them, but I did post on Facebook, oh my God, I'm standing 6 feet from Q, and lost my mind, but
Of course. Who wouldn't?
right?
Delancey's great. Yeah, he was on our show a couple of times.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Q came on our show a couple of times, and Delancey's awesome. Yeah, he's great.
Kimberly, have you heard his podcast? His Voyager podcast?
I've listened to the first 3 or 4 episodes. It is on my list to start over and listen from the beginning. I recently binged during quarantine all of TNG, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager.
Holy shit.
So that was just
right.
a few months ago. And then that was around the time I was finishing my rewatch of Voyagers when Delta Flyer started. And so I started listening to it, having just watched the episodes, and I was like, okay, great, you know. But then I haven't been listening to many podcasts at all lately.
I go through phases myself.
Yeah.
I go through phases.
No, I'm angry. I'm a podcaster, Kimberly. God damn it. Where's my fucking pizza?
I'm sorry.
Yes, where's our pizza?
I'm sorry. I'm in Idaho. It's too far away.
I will very quickly say thank you again for doing the show. And
you're very welcome.
Thank you guys for listening. And as always, have a good thing. Comedy on Vinyl is a production of StolenDress Entertainment. It is produced by Mike Warden and is hosted and edited by Jason Klom. Our theme song was composed and performed by Richard Levinson. You can email us at podcast@comedyonvinyl.com. You can also send snail mail to StolenDress Entertainment, P.O. Box 805, Burbank, California, 91503. Subscribe to Comedy on Vinyl on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and anywhere else you can find podcasts. Give us a 5-star rating and write us a review. It helps. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Comedy on Vinyl, or find everything in one place at comedyonvinyl.com. A major portion of Comedy on Vinyl has been underwritten by Stand Up Records. Please visit standuprecords.com for all your comedy needs, and tune in to the new Stand Up Records channel available on the Roku, where you can also find select episodes of this podcast. Visit StolenDress.com to listen to our other podcasts, watch videos, and imbibe freely of our multimedia content going back 15 plus years. StolenDress Entertainment.
Hey, it's my turn. Ah!